both of these shifts, the shift of our perceptions and ways of thinking, and the shift in our values, may be seen as shifts from self-assertion to integration. These two tendencies, the tendency of self-assertion and integration, are both essential aspects of life. That's what they say, that both belong to the living dynamic system. Now think about it, what that means. They both belong to the living dynamic system of consciousness. They both belong to the living dynamic system of the textbook. They both belong to the living dynamic system, the system of the model of being. These two aspects of self-assertion and integration. Two tendencies. And they say that neither one by itself is either intrinsically good or intrinsically bad. But what is good and what is healthy is a dynamic balance between them. A dynamic balance between the truth aspect of our nature and the love aspect. And neither one of those standing alone, but a dynamic balance. And what is bad, quote unquote, and unhealthy is an imbalance between them. Apparently that is what an unhealthy state is, to have a lack of balance between the truth aspect of our nature and the love aspect of it. Overemphasis of one tendency and the neglect of the other. To overemphasize the 6,000-year period and underemphasize the 7th, to underemphasize the 6th, to exclude the 6th to the glory of the 7th, say, oh, we're finished with the 6th now, we've done that, oh, we don't need that anymore. Thank goodness we don't have to analyze anymore. We can just synthesize. Or to want to analyze continually without allowing and opening up and accepting the movement of love to synthesize, to begin to synthesize everything that we have been given by the age of truth within consciousness. Can you hear what I mean with this? The balance between them. And now here comes a scientist who says that if we look at our Western industrial culture, we see that we're actually suffering from the fact that we have overemphasized the self-assertive and neglected the integrative tendencies. And that this is apparent in both our thinking and in our values. So Capra presents in his book entitled The Web of Life these two aspects. Say if you take your sheet of paper and you divide it in half, you put on one side the thinking, on the other side values, And then divide it again, divide each one of those columns into two more. Under thinking, you have the self-assertive on the left side and the integrative on the right. And under values, you have self-assertive on the left side and integrative on the right. And he says of thinking, what is the self-assertive? It is that which is rational, the rational, analysis, reductionist, and linear. And that which is integrative thinking is intuitive, synthesis, holistic, and non-linear. 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 Love is non-linear, but embraces the linear aspect within its non-linearity. We'll talk about it. We'll expand on all these things. Because non-linear implies chaos. Love brings chaos. Chaos is super order. It is a super order. Under values, the self-assertive values are expansion, competition, quantity, and domination, they say. And the integrative is conservation, cooperation, quality, and partnership. So that in the patriarchal society, the self-assertive values are not only favored, but they are given economical rewards. They're rewarded. They're given economical rewards and political power. And the integrative values are generally penalized. In the old paradigm. Yeah. Power, in the sense of domination over others, is excessive self-assertion. And the social structure in which this is generally exerted and in which it is most effective is the hierarchy, a control hierarchy. You find this where? In our political structures, in our military structures, in our business structures, our corporate structures. This is the form of the old paradigm. So the hierarchical, the patriarchal is patterned in rigid structures of domination and control, which comes from what? An inadequate model of understanding. It's an incomplete model of understanding reality. An incomplete view or understanding of nature. forming the worldview. So we don't have that complete view of nature. It's really the nature of God. It's the nature of being. It's the divine nature. Until we see love, until we know what love is, they say that the shift to a different system then, to move from the assertive into the integrative, generates fear in the hearts of those who have a vested interest in the old paradigm. Yeah. But that there is another kind of power than the dominator. Another power, the power of love. And that's the power that we find in the new paradigm, the power of love. And that is the power to influence others beneficially. It's not an influence for oneself, for selfish interests. It's the sense of influencing in the way of cooperating, co-partnering, co-working for the whole. Working together for the whole. And that the ideal structure, you know what the ideal structure for that is? For that kind of power? It's not the hierarchy. It's not a control hierarchy. It's the network. The network of love. So the new paradigm shift will be that one that includes a shift in all of our social organizations, our institutes, our schools, our families, our businesses, our corporate structures, political structures, everything, a shift from hierarchies to networks. So we come to that great subject of the network. And two, that as the new paradigm comes in, we call it the paradigm of love, they call it the paradigm of the ecological paradigm. What comes with that is a new ethics, a new sense of ethics. And that apparently this is needed, very much needed, everywhere. Doesn't take a lot to convince you of that, I'm sure. Yeah. The new world view is the network view, a network of interdependencies with a new ethics in which the tendency is to further life and its purpose, to preserve life and its purpose instead of to destroy life. Because you can see in the sciences so many things coming in that do not, tendencies, ethical or non-ethical tendencies that do not embrace the teleological sense within them, the purposeful sense within them. We see it in the cloning, say, the whole cloning issue, in the biological warfare, you see, of weapon systems that tend to could destroy the whole world without any thought about what the outcome could be, what the result would be. The releasing of biological elements into the environment without knowing the consequences of it. All of that. They say that there will be a new ethics coming, an eco-ethical morale, eco-ethical standards that are really coined by what we know about love, that take into account the end result, that have a goal causality built in, that are teleological, that are considering the whole, that doesn't just consider one aspect of society or a single individual in society, but the whole. So the movement in the paradigm of love is away from the parts and to the whole. This is another great aspect of what is taking place. Concerns basically the relationship between the parts and the whole. That's all being turned around from what it was. Because in the previous worldview, the emphasis has been on the parts. We call that mechanistic or reductionist or atomistic. All those wonderful terms that Max Kapler has taught us, explained to us. We really should feel that we have had the greatest education possible in our teaching of the science of being. And so the new emphasis now is on the whole. It is holistic. It is systemic, meaning systems. It has to do with systems. The holistic perspective has become known as the systemic way of thinking. It implies systems thinking, systems reasoning. System being more than just a technical term, but really embracing within its meaning the ecological sense, and as we will see, the network sense, that a system is a network. To love, system is network. The main characteristics of systems thinking emerged during the first half of this century. Actually, most of the groundwork was done by biologists, and they did tremendous work, especially during the 1920s, and there was a lot of pioneering going on at that time in regard to the system's view of life, and the beginning to consider things as integrated wholes. Then it was further developed by the Gestalt psychologists and by the cyberneticians, or the cyberneticists in the 1940s, and finally by the new science of ecology. A system then has come to be called or considered as an integrated whole, whose essential properties arise from the relationships between its parts. And systems thinking is the ability to understand a phenomenon within the context of a larger whole. To understand things systematically then means to put them into a context, This is again love. It's the two directions. You see that if we look at a system, we can see it from two directions. That we can look at a system's inner constituency, or we can look at a system related to its greater whole, to the greater system within which it is. One of the key characteristics of the organization of living systems is its hierarchical nature. But don't think it's the old sense of hierarchy. We're going to learn something new about hierarchy. It means that a living system, it's the property actually of all life to form multi-leveled structures. To form multi-leveled structures of systems within systems. Each of these forms is itself a whole with respect to its parts, and at the same time it is a part of the larger whole. That's what we were saying, that every system, every network has that relationship, both within itself, that we can look to its inner constituency, and we can look outward to the greater system within which it is lying. So that actually they begin to see that throughout nature, throughout the living world, we find systems nested within other systems. And so the new form of hierarchy is not a control hierarchy, but a nested hierarchy. As we've already been taught in our science of being, we've already been taught that the model of being is a nested hierarchy. A nested hierarchy implies multi-leveled order. Multi-leveled order. And so multi-leveled order within order, systems within systems, networks within networks, is bringing out what they call the web of life.